Frictional Games are my favorite horror game developers, and as someone who spent almost 200 combined hours on Steam on their games, with 150 alone on the original Amnesia, their latest game, Amnesia the Bunker, is their best work yet, and it has managed to topple the Dark Descent as the best Amnesia for me. So in this review, I'll try not to spoil anything story related and some gameplay elements. It's my mindset that the best way to experience any game is to go completely blind into it, which is what I did with this game, and honestly it has made playing it a lot better. So that's why I would encourage anyone to just pick up and play it before watching this. Without further ado, let's get into why I love this game so much. Let's start the gameplay, which is the game's strongest suit. The bunker feels like an extension of the original Amnesia hub design, in that there's a central room with a door that needs some items located in other rooms that the player must locate and use to unlock the door and proceed to the next hub area. This game feels like that, but extended for the entire duration of the playtime. The main goal to win is simple. You're trapped in a bunker with its only exit collapsed. You need to find some dynamite and a detonator plunger to blow the exit open and escape. These items are in other parts of the bunker, all the while there's a monster stalking you every step of the way. That's all the game gives you in terms of direction. In fact, the only times where the game tells you outright what to do and how to do it is in the tutorial level that also sets up the plot and the occasional hints at the top of the screen. The rest of the game you're on your own to learn how to survive. As the game says, use your wits and your brains. Experiment. If you think something might be possible to do, it probably is. As with most other Frictional games, you have an inventory, which you can expand with pocket bags to a maximum of 13 slots. You can also craft items by dragging one onto the other. In previous games, combining items was only used to create something needed to advance into the next area, so this crafting system, while pretty basic, is still a nice feature. Throughout most of your playthrough, you will often run into situations where you don't have enough space for what you want to pick up, meaning you will either need to use it or drop it on the ground. This includes items that you need to progress, so inventory management is necessary. And you will need to do that if you want to keep the lights on. The generator is a perfectly executed mechanic, and it's one of the biggest reasons why this game is so tense and terrifying to me. It powers the bunker's lights and some machines you need to progress as well. It's good, because with it on you don't have to use your loud flashlight as much, and the monster itself becomes a bit more shy to come out of its hidey spots in the walls. If you're still staying appropriately quiet, that is. The catch of the generator, however, is that it runs on fuel. Fuel that you need to scavenge throughout the bunker. And that fuel is scarce, especially on hard, which is the difficulty I selected for my first run. And it is imperative that you learn to ration it well. It effectively forces you to take it slow and quiet, but not too slow to not waste fuel. You are given a stopwatch, which tells you how much fuel you have left when you're far from the generator, so it's not all bad. Until the fuel runs out. When the blackout happens, the dynamic between you and the monster completely changes, forcing you to adapt a more cautious approach, on top of needing the flashlight, which without it the bunker is pitch black. Unless you're like me and spend many hours crawling out in complete darkness. The stalker will patrol a lot more and will stay out for longer as well, and every time it does, the game kindly reminds me of some totally not nerve-wracking sound effects. What I especially like about the generator is how it completely reverses this trend in Amnesia games of making light a commodity, where the light you had with you was limited, and the static environment light, while sometimes requiring another item to activate, was unlimited and it never went out. In the bunker, however, the light you have with you is unlimited and you can use it wherever you want, and the static light runs on a scarce resource. Along with being stealthy, you are given a couple of tools to distract or otherwise survive an encounter with the monster. You can find some empty bottles or physics objects in the world to throw, grenades that can also be used to blow open wooden doors, and flares. Should you get spotted, you have a couple of offensive tools as well, the main one being the revolver. It holds up to 6 bullets in its cylinder, and you can find ammo for it in ammo boxes throughout the bunker. Reloading takes a long time, in which you must put the bullets in individually, so it isn't exactly possible to do so in a pinch. You can shoot the monster to stun it for a few seconds, after which it will either continue to attack you or retreat into the closest hole. Keep in mind that doing this seems to make it angrier and more aggressive, so you should still avoid encounters. The revolver is also used to shoot off padlocks off of doors and some drawers. All of this makes the gun more of a utility than a weapon to defend yourself, however it always makes you breathe a sigh of relief whenever you find even one bullet. Another item you can use is a Molotov, which you need to craft and have a lighter on you to use. The Molotov is great because it creates a wall of fire between you and the monster, and a bottle, fuel and a cloth are easier to come by than a bullet. You can also pour fuel on the floor and ignite it to get a similar effect, but it's mostly good to use as a trap or a plan B. Occasionally you can also find some explosive barrels to get the beast to fall back, and gas grenades. Be careful though, as these can hurt you as well, even kill you in one shot if close enough. The fact that you can tackle situations in multiple ways reminds me of Penumbra, specifically the first installment, Penumbra Overture. In that game, you could choose between fighting the enemy dogs head-on or sneaking past them. For fighting, you had a choice of a hammer, a pickaxe, and a broom for some reason, along with dynamite if you timed it right. You could also use environmental objects like gas canisters and steam pipes. As for evading, fresh meat can be used for distracting a dog, for example into a cage to lock it out or a steam pipe trap. We could also learn to a place where you can safely beat the crap out of it with the escape plan from TF2. It was nice to see this immersive sim-esque aspect make a return in the bunker. The safe room is the place where you will probably spend the most of your time, mainly because it's the only room in the game where you are truly safe from any threats, and the game's only natural light source, the lantern, which you can light to save your progress. Inside the safe room there's also a box where you can store items, a map of the bunker that gets updated with new points of interest and areas of the bunker as you explore, and the generator that I mentioned previously. I love this room, because it's a break from the game's tense and thick atmosphere, where you can lock the big metal doors, shut off the generator, and just take a breather for as long as you want. Drop off items, refuel, look at the map, form a plan, maybe save multiple times in a row just in case. The general vibe of the safe room reminds me of the back hall from the Dark Descent. Just after surviving an intense chase with the water monster, you enter a grand hall with this calming, angelic music in the background, and blue lighting free from any sanity-lowering darkness, telling you that you're safe from any danger here. Which is shattered whenever you go into any other area connected to the back hall, especially the storage. Which is mostly pitch black and dangerous, exactly like in the bunker. Now, I understand that the beast is the main antagonist in this game, but I feel like we're all sleeping on arguably the biggest enemy here, and that is noise. No other game has made me feel so aware of just how loud I can be. If you think that whatever you're about to do will be relatively quiet and okay, the game will very quickly tell you that actually, that was really loud and you're about to die. Even cranking that soldier boy once at the wrong time can get you killed. Along with that, most if not all of the items you can use emit noise and take time to use, even something like using a key on a door, which is a departure from the original Amnesia, where most of your interactions are instant. Yes, I'm putting the monster in its own chapter, because it deserves it. The beast to me is already an iconic monster, up there with the grunt, brute, and suitor. It looks distinctly like an animal, detached from anything resembling a human, but it still possesses some human traits, for instance human teeth, lack of body fur, and wearing tattered rags which look like they used to be soldier clothing. Appearance isn't the main reason why I like the monster, however, since you can't even get a good look at it for most of the game, as it causes electrical disturbances when it's close to any lighting. What I like the most about it is its behavior, AI, and sound design. The monster is really good at keeping itself hidden from view, preferring to stay in its self-made tunnel system throughout the bunker, with holes in the walls being its entrance and exit points, and causing the lights to go funky like I said earlier. It does however make a lot of noise itself, with animalistic breathing, grunting, heavy footsteps, and burrowing noises when it's in its tunnels. Also, when it is in the tunnels, you can still actually see it moving. Most of the time, when the generator is powered, it will stay in the tunnels, carefully listening for any sound made by you or otherwise. Upon hearing a noise, it will go near a hole closest to the source, staying close to it, waiting for you to come by, in which case it may pull you in and game end you. It can also stick its hand out and feel around, revealing its massive claws. Make more of a ruckus, and the beast will eventually pop out and see what the fuss is about. If it spots you, it will make this loud roar and proceed to bolt after you, even across different areas of the bunker. This isn't the original Amnesia where a level transition door will save you. Another thing that I love about the monster is that it isn't completely stupid. It will try to open a door first, and if it's blocked and wooden, it will bash it down. If it's metal though, it will try to go around it. It's a nice shake-up from the Dark Descent, while the monsters will always break down doors, but it shows that this thing does have some intellect. It can even open closet doors! What once was a nice and safe hiding spot in the original Amnesia isn't so safe anymore. It didn't happen to me when I recorded this playthrough, so here it is happening to Markiplier.
Oh well, still gotta progress, still gotta do things. Whoa! 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 What do you mean?
And yes, it can kill you instantly, though I'm not sure when it can exactly do that, since sometimes it can just hurt you if you're quickly withdrawing your gun. Not that that's any better, because getting hurt makes you bleed, and the monster can use her drops of blood to track you down. And that's terrifyingly amazing. It really makes the beast feel like a perfect predator, and you as its prey. Unless you heal with a bandage or medkit, you will continue to spill blood, with the amount and frequency depending on how hurt you are. Bit of a side note, but I love the visual health system in this game. While it doesn't make sense to estimate injury severity by how much blood is on your fingers, it's interesting and reminds me of the health meter from the Dark Descent, which was a heart that progressively looked towards the more hurt you were. To me, the beast feels like the alien from Alien Isolation combined with a realization of the idea of Wilbur Frisk, aka the Hunter, from Penumbra, who was a cut monster that still in a way showed up in Penumbra Black Plague in the kennels, all the way back in 2008. Like the beast, the hunter is afraid of light and likes to make holes in the walls to move around. Even the idea of it being human previously is similar to the beast. The similarity to the alien comes from the fact that it is sensitive to noise, can kill you in one hit, is invincible, crawls around the ceiling, and seems to learn from you, and over time becomes more aggressive. I'm also going to lump another enemy here, which is the rats. They more or less act like obstacles, usually seen munching on a corpse directly in the middle of a hallway you need to go through. The rats are a problem, because you can't just run through or jump over them, as doing that will make them bite you at least once, and as said before, that's no good. Another problem is that the bodies have dog tags on them with locker codes that contain useful items, and you can't inspect the dog tag with the rats biting you. So, you need to make them go away. To that end, there's a couple of things you can do. Like always, you can throw expired meat you find in the bunker to distract them long enough to slip by. This mechanic is reminiscent of Penumbra Overture again, in which you could distract the dog enemies by throwing fresh meat. A flare is also another option if you throw it at the body, albeit a bit louder. A gas grenade works too, but unless you have a gas mask, you need to wait for it to dissipate. But the absolute best way, bar none, is to make a torch. It's great because it's reusable until it runs out, can light up darkness without making noise, and makes the rats retreat into holes. The downside is that it requires a lighter to use, which can only be found in a code-locked locker. But once you do get it, it's pretty much game over for rats. But even after doing any of these methods, they'll still come back to the body. That means to get rid of them permanently in this area is to burn the corpse. The rats lose interest to the body after it is burned. Again, you can do this in multiple ways. As mentioned before, you can pour fuel out of the fuel cans on the body and ignite it with either a gunshot, a flare, or a lighter. Be careful of the lighter though, because you can easily burn yourself with it. Another way is to use the Molotov, which is arguably the best option because you don't need to get the rats off the body to burn it. The issue is that no matter what you do, you need to use up at least one fuel can just for one body to incinerate it. And fuel is the most valuable resource down here. That leaves you with a choice. Do you use a fuel can, potentially lowering the time you can have the generator on, but also getting a dog tag and removing rats forever? Or do you tank the damage necessary to jump over the rats, saving some fuel? Better make that choice quick. You're still on the clock after all. Let's move on to something that Frictional historically always nails, and that is atmosphere. The titular bunker is a cold and dreary place, and without its artificial lighting completely dark and deafeningly quiet. An industrial complex, once filled with people, now abandoned. If you didn't know any better, you'd think that its inhabitants just decided to leave for no particular reason. But even with that, every step you take still reinforces the idea that something is very wrong here. You can't exactly pinpoint why. Every area of the bunker has a different atmosphere, enhanced by the very subtle and unique ambiance, like for example the very much lived in soldiers' quarters with the distant sad piano playing on the radio. And the maze of shelving and boxes in the arsenal. The soundtrack of the game, composed by the legendary Mikko Tarmia, seems to consist of the same notes and the same instrument, and it works very well, especially the safe room music. This song is the reason why I never wanted to leave the safe room ever. It's very relaxing and hopeful, but also conveys this feeling of hopelessness at the same time, as if telling you that you will need to be brave and go back into the darkness if you want to escape. The music also only ever starts when you lock both doors to the safe room and when the monster is sufficiently far away, doubling the comfort. This feeling of being helpless induced by the ambiance reminds me a lot of the Penumbra series again, which also had these really subdued ambiance tracks. If I could somehow describe it, Amnesia ambiance kind of tickles you and unnerves you with occasional ghostly sounds and voices. Where Penumbra and the bunker whisper to you, sometimes literally. It's also pretty effective at making you paranoid, which... Was it just me, or was the monster just at the end of this hallway? Huh. Anyway, speaking of paranoid, the music that plays when the beast is out and about is something else entirely. You will grow to hate this track, especially when combined with the distant footsteps, since you're not even sure exactly where it is. Along with that, if the monster is close enough to you, you will start hearing your own heartbeat. Another thing that adds to the immersion and atmosphere is that randomly you will hear and feel artillery bombings above, reminding you that not only is there an outside world, but it's also embroiled in humanity's deadliest armed conflict at the time. And this I found out recently, you can hear a plane flying. I didn't know that! This leads into one of my favorite scenes in this game. You unlock a door and beyond it is an unusual sight, a ladder with light shining above. You decide to climb up it and see a crack in the ceiling. Could this be a way out? You reach the top and find out that you're in a pillbox. You see an opening potentially big enough for you to crawl through. Sure, there's barbed wire, but with some effort you could remove it quite easily. You approach the opening when suddenly... Right, even if you do get out, you will still likely die. At this point you may be wondering if it's even worth it to try to escape, since outside is just as deadly, if not more, than the inside. Suddenly being trapped down here seems like a good option comparatively. Again, this profound feeling of hopelessness not only ties thematically with the World War I setting, but it also gives me heavy Penumbra vibes. The sound design is also well made, with everything sounding clear and crisp. The best thing about it is when you do something very loud, like fire the gun or use a grenade, not only is it really loud, but it also gives you temporary tinnitus, making you temporarily partially deaf. This successfully makes you hesitant and afraid of doing those things, especially when it's necessary for progression, as it will put you at a disadvantage and draw the monster to you.
Follow the trench! It'll lead you to the rendezvous.
I'm not going to say much about the story, since I don't want to spoil the big stuff, and it doesn't seem to be the main focus of this game anyway. Amnesia the Bunker is set in 1916 during the Great War. You play as a French soldier named Henri Clement, who is trapped in the bunker and needs to find some items to make his escape. The game opens up with a tutorial that teaches you the basics of gun handling, inventory, crafting, and how to use various items to your advantage. After shooting some Germans and getting shot at by the Germans, you get stuck during a gas attack without a gas mask. You nearly die, but you get saved by a fellow soldier and friend of Henri's, Augustin Lambert. The scene transitions to Henri in no man's land at night, a term describing an area between two front lines or trench systems during World War I, which neither party controls. This land was commonly filled with landmines, shelled, and had sniper fire, so going out here alone seems suicidal. Eventually you find a massive crater and what looks like a person at the bottom. We get down using a rope and we find Lambert, wounded bad. We get him out of the pit and carry him back to the bunker. Unfortunately, we are spotted by a German patrol and we get knocked out by an explosion. Following that, the game informs us that the tutorial is over and we are now on our own to survive. We wake up in an infirmary with bandaged hands, meaning that somehow we live through that, and maybe Lambert too. A nearby note informs us that we were in a coma and that we have no memory of recent events and that we had trouble recalling our own name. Huh. I wonder what this note is called. So? Jokes aside, the fact that the first written note we find is about how we have amnesia is very reminiscent of the Dark Descent, where the first note is from ourselves, telling us that we drank an amnesia potion. After exploring and finding a flashlight, we come across a wounded soldier who thought he was the last one. He tells us that the officers fled from the bunker and blew the exit behind them, and that to escape we need to blow it back open. We can find the dynamite in the arsenal, and a detonator handle in an excavation site. He then hands us his revolver and asks to be put out of his misery. We enter a room to get ammo and upon returning... Yeah, we're probably the only one now. The bunker isn't really story focused like the other games, and the only way to get lore is out of notes, and even if you miss the lore entirely, you will still enjoy this game. While it's not anything thought provoking, in my opinion it's still pretty interesting and sad once you start to connect the dots, especially regarding the beast. Unlike the previous entry in the Amnesia series, Henri is basically mute. The only times where we hear him is during the tutorial, original Amnesia style voiceover journal entries, and his various gasps, breathing, and terrifying screams when dying or getting burned. Aside from that, he never speaks in the entire game, and that's a good thing. As much as I like Tasi from Amnesia Rebirth, she just talks way too much. While the graphics of Amnesia the Bunker aren't anything to write home about, in my opinion the game still looks pretty damn good, and honestly, it's difficult for me to believe that technically these two games are running on the same engine, just the one on the right received some upgrades. Lighting and art direction are more important anyway, and here it looks nice, with each area of the bunker looking different from one another, like I said earlier. The game was also very stable, well optimized, and I had close to no bugs. The only one being that when recording in OBS, the game sometimes stutters in the video, but in game it's completely smooth. My biggest complaint though is that between the bunker areas the game will hitch as the map loads in, but it usually doesn't ruin the experience or immersion. Something to note that might be a problem to some, the game is locked to 60 FPS with no real way to uncap it. The reason for this is that the first iteration of this engine had the physics system tied to the frame rate, and it carried over all the way to today. Going higher will most likely result in the physics becoming broken and less accurate. So yeah. What was a really nice thing to see is custom story and mod support with the Steam Workshop. Continuing the tradition of being able to make your own stories in Amnesia is good, and a major reason why the Dark Descent got as popular as it did. So I'm glad that Frictional hasn't left it out. Amnesia the Bunker surprised me with how much I've come to love this game. It's in my mind the best horror game of the year and the best game that Frictional Games has ever made. and I've never expected them to be able to top the Dark Descent. It's the one game in their whole lineup that is without a doubt the one that feels the most like survival horror. With a gripping atmosphere of always being stalked and in danger, addicting and satisfying gameplay, and a simple but interesting story, it's a game that most people will enjoy playing. I've played the game on hard difficulty and it took me around 4.5 hours, so it's on the short side of the spectrum, but it also means that it doesn't overstay its welcome and makes the whole experience feel complete. I'd recommend starting out on the hardest difficulty like I did, as playing a second time on normal was a bit different and lenient on how many mistakes you can make. The game in general feels like a combination of Amnesia, the Dark Descent, and the Penumbra series, which now makes me wish that Frictional would release a proper sequel to Penumbra. My boy Philip didn't deserve what happened to him. Thanks for watching.